Welcome to The Cloaked. We are a collective of inquiring minds seeking answers to mysteries both past and present. Join us on our journey to discover that which remains hidden. And now, on with the show.
Anyways, I was saying, welcome to another episode of The Cloaked. I am your host, White Owl.
Hey, it's Pandora.
And no, it's been a while since I've done a posting. We have this very interesting story that Pandora has brought us.
Or stories.
Huh?
Stories?
Stories? Yeah, I guess, you could say stories because it's a set of different things, but one's more personal than the other, but they're from the same general area. Is that correct?
Correct. That is from Honduras.
Yes. And do you want to start with the more close, the personal one first, right? I think, or do you want to set the premise, or how do you want to do it? I'll let you decide.
So I feel like a premise, right? Because the premise or the subject is duendes.
Right, duendes. Yes, that's correct.
So
surprise, we're doing duendes.
Translation would be what, like little
people,
beings.
little beings. I know we've done so many episodes, so I'm pretty sure a lot of the people who are familiar with the duende, phenomenon, know that it's elves or little people,
even goblins,
trolls,
in the realm of all those little fairy
type
people,
right? And so people kind of already have like a story, a backdrop of some of this stuff. We've done numerous episodes on different stories from around the world. Anyways, from different people experiencing this phenomenon, and a lot of the stories that we found tended to be kind of centered in Latin America.
Right. So I mean, that's the thing, is like all the countries have their version of like small fairy people, right?
Right.
Duendes, trolls, just different versions of that. But in Latin America, Central America, probably even Mexico, right? Like there's definitely belief in all these things. In Honduras, it's like a big part of the culture. Like people don't even think you're crazy if you mention it. Like it's on the news.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's on the news. Like they have like radio shows about it. They like write about it in their newspapers. Like people just share their stories, and it's something that people hear about like growing up.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like that thing where I think it goes from legend or myth to like the stories people tell their kids, like careful, or like the duende is gonna get you, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely like part of the culture. So for me, I think like I have a personal story, not personal like my experience, but my mom's, because she's from there.
Right.
So her growing up there, she kind of had the same, cultural experience, being brought up right to her when she was little. But she actually had some stuff where when she was younger, she had this weird episode where first she remembers being fine, healthy. She was probably like 9, I think, when this happened. And she saw some weird stuff. She saw what she describes as it looked like a cat walking around, but with a man on top that resembled her dad, like riding around on the cat.
Right.
Which is like, what the hell, right?
Yeah, which is kind of
She wasn't sick or anything, but she saw this and was like, she shared this and was like, I saw this. Like, and I was like, are you sure it wasn't like a different man? And she was like, no, it looked like my dad. So that's one thing, right? What follows after is that she ends up getting sick. Like, really sick. Like, my mom used to have straight hair. And she, like, lost most of her hair after this illness. And she ended up having curly hair, first of all.
Right. Kind of odd.
But she got really sick. They don't really know what she had. She wasn't conscious anymore. Like, she was out. They couldn't wake her. They pretty much told her parents at the time that she wasn't going to make it. They actually chose the dress that she was going to be buried in.
Just kind of
It's dark.
right.
Yeah, like that's how bad she wasn't like recovering.
Yeah.
Um and then so they actually ended up going to somebody that did like cleansings or something like that, and they did something and she actually like came through. She pulled through. But like they still
Yeah.
don't know like what happened.
What she had or
Right. And so like there's this thing where like, there's always a suspicion of like maybe it's something with like what she was seeing or like what was that? Part of me thinks like well, maybe she was having fever or something, like you start to like hallucinate, right?
right.
But she's like I wasn't sick then when I started seeing these things. So it just makes you think like maybe there's something else going on, and the fact that medicine didn't work. Like it wasn't until they got somebody that was doing something more spiritual that actually helped her come out of this.
A witch doctor.
Pretty much, yeah. And I mean, they never really knew if it was like something that somebody like did to her or what.
Right.
But I mean, the fact that she was at the point where they were like picking out the dress for her to
Which
be
is kind of
buried in
scary,
is
right?
yeah, it was pretty bad. So that's one story. But she also has an uncle, grown man.
Uh huh. Fascinating.
So she has an uncle that grew up in the mountains, right? Which it's kind of like a lot of people actually because it's a very mountainous country.
Right.
So he grew up in the very like mountainous area, more remote, and he tells of having seen duendes himself.
As a grown man, you're
Right,
saying.
as an adult. Like not like telling stories to scare them, but just like I swear I saw this. And he says that he actually saw one and it spoke to him. And his whole thing was that like they're known to play pranks on you, right?
Right. The
So they're
tricksters.
mischievous little, like best case scenario they're gonna prank you. Worst case scenario it's more malevolent, but
Right.
like
You disappear.
right. So I mean he says that.
What are you saying?
So this uncle says that like, him being from the mountain area, like you kind of know the area, right? If that's where you grew up.
Yeah.
But he says that like he got lost.
Uh huh.
So
So
he
you got
says he got lost there, and him knowing the area, that's kind of weird, but it's possible, right? Like you can see how people could get turned around. But that's one of the things that he said he saw one. Like, he saw a duende. And then he started getting like hopelessly lost. Like he just could not find his way. And that's one thing that people are known to mention is that like you could leave markers, right? Like in the woods, like marking your way on the trees or
clear your
something. And
path.
then they get removed. So then you can't find your way. I don't know if he was marking stuff at the time, but what he says is that he could not find his way and he had seen one. And so he was like, kind of like cursing it out loud, being like, you know, like I can't find my way, like damn it, you know what I mean, like this.
Right.
And he was like, he yelled at it. And he was like, I'm lost. Like, why are you like getting me lost? Like, help me or something. And it popped up for him, and it was like, oh, here I am,
So this duende
Yeah.
showed up after your uncle yelled at seemingly nothing because he obviously didn't. He suspected
He had seen it
something.
already,
Oh right. Oh okay. So he had
and it
seen it.
came back.
Oh
Is the story.
right.
So he saw one, and then he started getting crazy lost, and then he was like, you know, mad about this and couldn't like get his bearings. So when he yells out for it, then after some time, like it comes
It
out.
comes out and then
So that's my mom. Obviously my mom doesn't like wasn't there, but I was like, "What can you tell me?" And that he just described it as like this like very ugly little like man, like small. She couldn't describe the clothing, but like he just had like a very ugly little face. Like he was short.
mm-hmm.
And like I'm guessing it spoke Spanish to him. I don't know, but that's crazy that he saw it. And then after that, he was like pointed the direction to go and was able to find his way.
Huh.
Questions, concerns.
I mean, you said that this is something that the people in Honduras kind of take it as a fact. They don't laugh at you. This is something that happens, and when you said this, you said it in a way that you showed me proof by showing me a video of a news clip. You know, it's about 9 minutes long. We'll probably post it. We'll post it along with the YouTube video, and then we'll post it on the other social medias. But you mentioned that this is something that they show on the news and the newspapers and different articles of how this occurs on almost a regular basis. And the one you showed me is in the general area of where your uncle lived.
I think it was Comayagüela, where my uncle had this happen to him, is an area called Montaña La Tigra, which is technically like a national park.
Right.
But I mean, Honduras itself is not a very big country. It's like
Okay.
1 million people.
So general area. So
Right.
the one you just showed me, when did that happen? Because it appeared to be recent.
It was more recent, yeah. Because my mom's stories are obviously like, further back. This was like maybe 2 years ago. And it's this news channel, like they're reporting, right? Like, hey, we're coming to you with
Right.
this crazy story. And it's not like the weird news. It's like, it's the news,
Right.
And they start off by being like, we have this crazy story. And before we get started, we just want to say we're covered in the blood of Christ.
Right.
So that's when
No,
you're
yeah.
like, oh shit.
Yeah. No. Yeah. He said that, and I was like, oh, okay.
He's like, I just want to throw
And
this out there.
the fact that he said it with a straight face,
He
it was
was
like he
not
was
messing
not
around.
messing around.
Right. And that's the thing. That's what gets you, is like, you don't get the feeling that they're like
Joking about it. It's not a
deceiving,
joke.
or they're feeling it.
Right.
Whatever it is, or they're believing it. So
So the story was about this girl who was passing out, waking up in this cave, and she was being taken. Her mom had seen this happen. I think the part that I found interesting on this story was that the mom says, "Hey, look, in order to get to this area, you got to go through this like swampy, like muddy area." And the daughter, every time she found the daughter, she was not covered in any mud. There was no mud on her. There was no mud on the dress. But for her to get there, she ended up being covered in mud
right.
to get to her daughter. And she was like,
It's like she's being picked up.
she's being picked
carried
up.
through the air.
And that's kind of what her daughter says. She's being picked up to get to this mountain area. But what she described, that what was taking her, was interesting. What did she say?
So it had a lot going on.
Right, there was a lot, yes.
It was a lot. Because I felt like there was two different things happening to this girl in terms of like episodes, right?
Right.
One was she was like all of a sudden like not well, and she would just kind of like roll over and be like passed out for 2 hours, and these episodes would keep happening. And then when she would wake up, it was like on like a spiritual level, right? She had been like taken,
Like astral projecting, kind of.
right?
Right.
But then it also sounds like she was like physically like running off and going to this like cave nearby. And that's where the mother describes it's like very swampy, and like you don't walk through there, cars don't even go through there, it's very muddy.
Right.
So it's almost like, oh, how did she get there, right, without being muddy herself? But she's describing that like this woman, a tall woman, I think she says like dark shadow or dressed in black. I don't remember.
Like, yeah, it's like a dark
Like,
shadow
it's
dressed
dark.
in black. Right. Either or. They weren't sure. I think.
That's how it would appear at their home. And then once the girl gets to the destination, like the cave or whatever it is,
Right.
then all of a sudden it's like a small boy. Right?
It transforms.
Like it's a shape-shifting thing going on.
Right.
And then at that point it was telling her like, oh, I have gold, or I have things, like
Right.
almost like recruiting her.
Right. Almost trying to convince her or like pay her in a weird way, right? Like, it was weird. That's what I
Yeah,
thought
well,
it was.
so there's a couple of things with this, right? So one, like they show the girl. The girl's like 11 years old. I mean,
Right. This isn't like a toddler. She's 11.
right. She's 11. the mom describes her as being like a bright child. The interviewer says, yeah, we've spoken to her. Like at the time, she's like not conscious, but
Right.
they're like, we've spoken to her. She seems like very
Normal
normal. Like you
kid.
speak to her, there's nothing like weird going on with the girl. But she's having these episodes, and so like one of the things is like I mentioned the cultural stories of like they steal children or whatever. But if you read the comments on the video, which I did, um, half of them are like the blood of Christ. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right,
people are
right.
like scared shitless.
Yeah.
But the others are like they're talking about how they like pretty little girls. You know what I mean? So it's kind
These
of creepy, but it's kind of like they target like girls that they like.
these duendes.
Yeah.
Yeah, these little people. Maybe they're trying to get, prettier because they're ugly. So they're trying to make the new duendes. Baby duendes.
That sounds like something my mom would say. No, but I mean, there's this weird thing where it's like, are they targeting like certain like little girls that they like, or I've heard of like boys too, so I have no idea
Oh
what
shit.
the
Right.
what the motive is, but
Right. Is
but
it
also kids are smaller and easier target than like an adult,
an adult?
right?
Right.
But in this case, the mom also mentions that she saw stuff.
Right.
She saw the shadowy figure. She saw like a random little boy appear at like 11 at night
Following her.
that was then telling her daughter that he had appeared
He had
to her
followed
own
her,
mother.
and
Yeah.
then that the mom had chased him with the machete, or kind of said something with the machete.
Yeah,
Right.
like hit the machete to scare him off.
Right. Which is like, oh shit, this is
Yeah.
legit. I don't know, man. Like this, I think these stories are pretty amazing. I think especially out of like the way the country of Honduras handles that as like fact. I think it's pretty amazing because I see it the way I know I'm gonna. I don't know if people were like. I don't know how people will handle this, but it's the way I see aliens and UFOs. Right? Latin America always saw it like that's fact.
Yeah.
Americans, right, and people around the world saw it as pseudoscience.
Right.
Until more recent, in the last 3 years, 4 years, that holy shit, this is real. This is real stuff. That these things flying around, we don't know what they are, who they are, where they're from, or anything, and they do exist. And so, as time progresses, I feel like, and with technology, and with phones, and everybody having a phone, people are going to capture something that they're going to see that's going to change the way we see the world and change the way we see and think about the mythology. Because we've had a conversation about mythology,
Right.
that mythology is wrapped in some kind of truth, that mythology is a story,
It
there's
doesn't
a
start
set of
out as
stories.
mythology.
Right.
What we call mythology was someone's reality
Reality, exactly.
or like true religion, right?
Right.
Like I think our religions today are the future mythologies.
Right. We had that
So,
conversation. I think you're probably accurate on that. So to that, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm anxious to see what's to come next on the whole Duende set of stories, because that is like I feel like I should keep an eye on that part of the country to see what else is going on. But no, that's a good story. I like your set of stories.
I forgot to mention one thing.
What?
Cuz I told you right about the floating thing, the sensation of the girl.
Right.
Well, not the sensation of the girl. The girl that the mom describes as like she ends up in this place
Right.
and everybody to get there would get like crazy muddy, but this girl is like pristine, right? So how'd she get there? Um, there is another story that my mom tells that it's not like duendes per se, but she can't explain. And it's this area that she would walk through. It's a hilly area, as in like it goes up and down as you're
Oh
walking
yes.
through it. That she describes as like a path she would have to take, on a daily basis, like to get to where she was going.
Right.
That not on all occasions, but on many occasions growing up, she would be walking, and all of a sudden she would have this sensation of like her feet were no longer on the ground, like she was like gliding, and
Right.
she would almost feel like she got to her, like, from point A to point B like really fast, almost like she was just taken. But like that was it. Like it was just this weird thing, and I was like, "Are you high?" But but she's like, "No, like this just would happen," and she's like, "I would never tell anybody about it," but it was just kind of left at that.
So something she would say it should have taken her 15 minutes, and it was taking her like half the time.
Yeah, I don't know if like she looked at the time, but it was more like the sensation of like that took no effort. Like you got there in no time, even though this is like a hilly terrain.
Right.
So this is when she was younger, and she, no longer lived in Honduras for many, many years.
Right.
She actually went back as an adult or older adult,
Right.
walked through there, and the same shit happened to her again. She can't explain it. I was like, do you know anything about the area? Like, is there any like weird mysteries to it? She has no idea, but there's that sensation that like you're being taken.
That's
But it's
interesting.
almost like in a helpful manner. Like she's like, I don't feel scared, or I don't feel like it's malevolent, right? Like it's
It's
just,
it sounds like the road's being cut in half or something's happening.
yeah.
That's interesting. I'm gonna go talk to your mom about that. See what's going on. But thank you for sharing. That's a very interesting set of stories. I'm gonna keep an eye on Honduras. And guys, if you have any questions or concerns, please let us know. Send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, since this will be on YouTube. Until the next episode. Later, guys.